Hello there and welcome back. It's Mark, Book Ramble. And I'm going to be rambling with this one. I've already introduced the fact that I got the book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Obviously it's a well-known book. I've almost got Roman-like air. Anyway, perhaps it's because I am a grandfather of two, a boy and a girl. One's 5, one's 1. And I've hit 60. Perhaps I have become aware of the finality of life. Eventually it's going to run out. And because of these videos, I look at myself when I'm editing. I can see my reflection now in the picture. It's not like I used to look like. In fact, this is what I used to look like when I was in the Navy. A younger man then, obviously. But the thing about the meditations, and again, I read slowly, so it's taken me about a week to read that, because I'm obviously reading all other books. But rather than just waiting till the end to do a review, which I don't like anyway, because it doesn't suit me, I'm not very good at reviewing, I just like to talk about what's coming up as I'm reading. And certainly at the moment, I've become aware in books 1, 2, and into 3, Marcus Aurelius is talking much about death. And I just like to talk about that, not because it's a morbid topic, but it's one that affects all of us. So if you never read this before, Marcus Aurelius Antoninus was a Roman emperor. So these meditations are unique because we don't have many such things from anybody who got to such a high position in life. But Marcus Aurelius, he was the one in control of then the supreme power in the universe. He came to the purple when there was a lot of problems in the empire. I think there'd been a massive flood in Rome. There was a plague. They were persecuting Christians that were just coming through. He was alive in about, was it 180? Let me just check. Yeah. He died year 180. So he was in this unique position of putting to paper or papyrus his thoughts of what it should be for him to have a good life. And he wrote in Greek, not Latin, which I always find fascinating. It's almost as though he didn't want anybody looking if they found his works. There were Greek speaking, and a lot did learn Greek. A lot of Romans loved the idea of having tutors who were Greek. They were enamored by the Greek culture. But he dresses himself, and he's a Stoic, and some people find that quite hard-faced. And it's not writing like a novel or a book. He's writing notes to himself. It's a bit like Aristotle. They weren't necessarily for publication. They were just notes, lecture notes for Aristotle. And similar with the meditations, it's Marcus Aurelius talking to himself. But there's so much in here that you can take out, which as a younger man, I didn't. But now as an older man, I am. And he talks about, in book 1, what he has taken from people, various people, that he believes has made him a better person. So, for instance, to avoid empty enthusiasms, to disbelieve all that is taught by miracle mongers, he would have heard a lot of that, to grasp the idea of wanting correction in his character. So the fact that he's the superior power, and he's prepared to admit that, says a lot. He got from Apollonius moral freedom and the certainty to ignore the dice of fortune, and not to be impatient in explanation with somebody, which people in power seem to struggle with. Well, don't bother me now, I'm busy. But when you get to book 2, he starts thinking much about life and what does it mean for death. He says, this being of mine is made up of flesh. So, although he's saying this, in effect, I'll knock that microphone again. We could be saying this. This being of mine is made up of flesh, breath, and directing mind. Now the flesh you should disdain. Blood, bones, a mere fabric and network of nerves, veins and arteries. Consider too what breath is. Wind, and not even a constant, but all the time being disgorged and sucked in again. That leaves the third part, the directing mind. Don't let this directing mind of yours be enslaved any longer. No more jerking to the strings of selfish impulse, no more disquiet at your present or suspicion of your future fate. What's that got to do with death? Well, he's talking about we're just body, but it's not the most important thing. How all things quickly vanish, he says. Our bodies themselves lost in the physical world. The memories of them lost in time. The nature of all objects of the senses, especially those which allure us with pleasure, frighten us with pain, or enjoy the applause of vanity. How cheap they are, how contemptible, shoddy, perishable, and dead. These are matters for our intellectual faculty to consider. And then we get into the bit which I really want to talk about. What is death, he asks. Nothing more than a function of nature. And if anyone is frightened of a function of nature, he is a mere child. Or she, Reg. And death is not only a function of nature, but also to her benefit. He talks about time, that if you were destined to live 3,000 years or 10 times that long, nevertheless remember that no one loses any life other than the one he lives, or lives any life other than the one he loses. We've got one shot at this. Make the most of it. And the whole point of the meditations is to focus on not the body, because that ages, not the mind, because that is fleeting as well. There's a piece here that I found quite devastating. It's actually book 3. A real good reminder and worth reading. We must have a sense of urgency, not only for the ever closer approach of death, but also because our comprehension of the world and our ability to pay proper attention will fade before we do. And resent nothing that happens to us. Separate oneself in revolt from nature. Don't do it. Life is warfare and a visit in a strange land. The only lasting fame is oblivion. What then can escort us on our way? One thing, and one thing only. Philosophy. Well, he was a Stoic. So Marcus Aurelius. I can see why some people hate philosophy. Don't remind me of my death. When I was 20 and I first came across Plato, I loved the idea that Socrates, he would argue the toss. Well, he wouldn't argue the toss. He was a gadfly. But I loved that as a young man. But I don't think I really got it. It's only when you mature and you're getting into your autumn years that you realise that the power of philosophy is saying all this hot bother that we have as youngsters, which is natural, is that really important? And eventually it's going to stop, isn't it? The fires. The fires go low. So it is a really good book, one of those great books to read, because it gets you to focus on the ultimate. Don't worry about it. It's natural. It's a natural part. Aging is natural. You may lose your looks, faded looks or whatever, but that doesn't matter. Your beautiful soul. Well, that's what I tell myself every morning anyway. And so the idea is, it's just a gentle reminder. It's not easy. It's in your face, is old Marcus, but it's a really good book just to skim through, if nothing else, and how all the people of wealth and power and all that brings eventually disappear. I mean, that's the core of Beowulf as well. You can fight all these monsters, Grendel and the dragon. You ain't going to defeat death. So make the most of it while you're here. Anyway, that's just what I wanted to talk about. First of probably 2 or 3 I'll do on the meditations. I'll read some more, come back later. Thanks for listening.